in that regard. But if we are to have that happen, we can't have the skills that there are in oil and gas lost now. We can't have the reduction in those skills because those people will simply go abroad in order to use their skills. We need to have that seesaw effect. You cannot pull oil and gas down in advance of putting renewables up. And I've spoken incredibly passionately and regularly in relation to climate change, in relation to our need to meet our targets. But the UK government must consider that gap that there will be in the middle if they choose to take action too quickly without ramping up the jobs that there are in renewables. I'm pleased also to hear the commitment to a Scottish visa that has been made. I am really excited that we will have a situation where Scotland will be able to have our own immigration system that works for the needs of the people of Scotland rather than the populism of where the UK government think that things should be for people in the south of England.
Thank you. Dr Scott Arthur. And can I just remind people, please, can you bob? Because my list is different than the people who are bobbing. So if you don't bob, you won't get called. I'm terribly like a head teacher today, don't I? Appreciate that. Dr Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Chair, and it's a pleasure serving under you. And I also want to congratulate my colleague from Glasgow East for securing time for this debate and for touching on the university sector in his opening remarks. Scotland's universities, which are amongst the very best on the planet, are more than just institutions of higher learning. They are vital engines driving our economy, from groundbreaking research that fuels innovation to nurturing the next generation of talent. Universities play a pivotal role in shaping Scotland's future. Anyone who doubts this just has to look at the support Heriot Watt University's National Robotarium in my constituency gives businesses. That is just one example of how knowledge and expertise generated within our universities attracts investment, creates jobs and fosters economic growth. I'm proud that people living in Scotland have access to free university education, but I am ashamed that our universities are not fully funded to deliver it. Universities receive direct funding for each student via the Scottish Government, but this is currently around £2,000 less than universities in England get, and the gap is only widening. If we are serious about growing Scotland's economy, underfunding Scotland's universities must end. I'm also proud that our universities attract the best minds from around the world, both staff and students. This year, however, the number of visas issued to students coming from overseas to the UK overall dropped by 16% due to Conservative immigration policy. This is a failure and is really concerning given the current state of the sector in both Scotland and England. This also only damages the multicultural vibrancy that should be at the heart of any university experience, like the one my son Ben gets at the University of Edinburgh. In conclusion, Chair, Scotland's universities are not just assets, they are essential catalysts for economic growth. By investing in education and research, we are investing in our nation's future. That's why our universities must be nurtured and cherished, and their success should never be taken for granted. Go for it.
I'm grateful. He makes a very important point about Scotland's universities and the role that they play, and particularly the investment in our universities. So does he agree that it was a mistake by the UK Labour government to reverse the investment in the supercomputer in Edinburgh?
It was a mistake for the previous Conservative government to commit to that project without allocating funding to it. And my good colleague, the Secretary of State for Scotland, is working day in, day out to secure that funding, I can assure you. If we are serious about growing Scotland's economy, we have to ensure that our universities have the funding they need and that the voice of the UK's universities is heard when it comes to setting immigration policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Gregor Poynton.
It's a pleasure today to speak in this important debate on Scotland's economy. Scotland once led the world in economic and industrial development. Alongside other parts of the UK, Scotland was at the home of the global industrial revolution. But Scotland's economic present is not, I'm afraid, as glorious as its past. The economic legacy of both the SNP and Conservative governments has been dismal. We now face a stalled economy that no longer works for working people. Wages flatlining, fewer opportunities, business ignored and declining global competitiveness. Both the SNP and Tory governments have delivered little but chaos and uncertainty. So Scotland's economy has not been well served in recent years. However, today I'm here to say that Scotland's economy can be better and it can work for working people. We have incredible strengths, home to some of the best businesses in the world, a talented and skilled workforce, leading universities at the very forefront of human knowledge. We've got huge resources as well, potential in our natural resources too, and it's especially in a world where inclement weather can be seen as an economic asset. In West Lothian, we've got a fantastic set of businesses, an incredibly skilled workforce, multinationals, Indigenous scale-ups and early-stage start-ups too. The modern West Lothian economy has been built on a diverse range of sectors: life sciences, engineering, construction, food and drink, distribution, aerospace, retail, software development and renewables. And in Livingston constituency, we're the long-term home for many of the world's greatest companies: Sky, Mitsubishi, Glenmorangie, Valneva and many, many more. I just want to take a moment to thank my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Scotland, the ministerial teams and the energy security and net zero teams and the business and trade teams for their support around the potential job losses at Mitsubishi Electric. I also wish to thank Tom Arthur as well, the Scottish Government Minister for Employment and Investment, for his swift action to support the workforce there. These are skilled workers who are facing redundancy through short-term economic pressures. So the decisions that lie ahead of us to grow Scotland's economy will not always be easy, but taking the right choices to grow our economy and drive investment will create good jobs and new opportunities in every part of the country, and that's the country we wish to build together.
Thank you. Richard Baker.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak, and can I congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow East, on securing this important debate on Scotland's economy at such an important time. Scotland has a rich heritage in industry, in commerce and innovation, a legacy in which we must build and be far more ambitious for our future. 10 days ago, I visited the Inchderny distillery in my constituency, which is an exemplar of this approach to economic growth. The team at the distillery are leading innovation in one of our oldest and still most significant industries, developing new whiskies with grain sourced entirely locally and as a living wage employer. And not only that, they are investing in the future as well by installing a new boiler system for the distillation process, which is hydrogen ready. And it's very appropriate that Inchderny has taken this foresighted approach to their energy use when in Buckhaven, in my constituency, SGN are investing in a pilot programme for domestic hydrogen use in 300 homes in the community, and this virtuous cycle continues with the hydrogen boilers used in those homes developed by Bosch, who are a major employer in Glenrothes. So the importance of these and many other renewable businesses in my constituency shows how vital the decision has been by this UK government to deliver a step change in our ambition for Scotland and the UK to be a green energy powerhouse. And that is why the decision by this government to establish GB Energy, headquartered in Scotland in the wonderful city of Aberdeen, backed by £8 billion investment from the windfall profits of oil and gas giants, is such a vital initiative for Scotland and for my constituency. And this morning, we have heard no alternative proposal to invest billions of pounds in this vital industry for the future. And concluding, can I agree very much with the member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross about the importance of our fabrication yards for the future of this industry as well. The Methil yard in my constituency, which is currently going to be sold on with the process being undergone at Holland and Wolff, has a fantastic role to play in the future of our renewables sector, and the apprentices at that yard, where we have 200 skilled workers apprenticeship, their contribution will be vital if we are to achieve that crucial ambition for Scotland and the UK to be a leader in clean energy for the future.
Thank you. Joni Reid.
Thank you, Chair, and can I congratulate my honourable friend for securing this debate. I just want to take this opportunity to highlight one of Scotland's economic successes, which is now, unfortunately, a huge economic challenge, and that is the town of East Kilbride. It was Scotland's first new town, and I would argue most successful, but it was a success as a result of an interventionist industrial strategy. It brought together incentives and investment from the local development corporation and central government that resulted in inward investment in technological manufacturing and resulted in the Motorola plant, the Rolls-Royce plant, and many more, and a strategic approach by government to locate and disperse civil service jobs means that the HMRC and FCDO remain in the town today. The town was a product of strategic thinking, planning and active intervention, and it was a place of hope and aspiration where families could find not just homes but communities, jobs and opportunities. However, the contrast from what it was to what it is now is stark. Although it's still one of our most successful new towns, East Kilbride is not what it once was. It used to have almost full employment, but after the manufacturers pulled out of the town and industries that replaced them, such as services and retail, were a product of the financial crisis and faced some huge challenges. The town has failed to keep up with the pace of change, and also the previous Westminster government and the Holyrood government have utterly failed in supporting the town. The town feels neglected and let down by two governments, and the lack of any serious investment industrial strategy has left communities like mine and East Kilbride left behind. But there is, of course, now hope with the government's focus, the new government's focus on growth and investment, as well as the creation of GB Energy. East Kilbride can utilise its space and its skills that were used formerly to deliver companies like Rolls-Royce and Motorola. With a government serious about driving investment, boosting our economy and creating jobs, towns like mine and East Kilbride can be rebuilt and renewed, and that is the focus of what this government is trying to do. The post-war government that transformed our public realm can once again take place. It's a testament to the mission-led government that has a long-term strategic vision to rebuild Britain with an industrial and economic policy that puts working people fairness and growth at its core. Thank you.
Tracy Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I begin by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow East, in securing this important debate. Mr. Chairman, Prosper Scotland summed up the hurdles that faced the government ahead of the general election when they said that in addition to the challenges of decarbonisation, an ageing population and even greater technological challenges, that, and I quote, that it's also evident that our economy has struggled for the decade and a half since the financial crisis in 2007 and 2008, a weakness that has ill-prepared our society for the recent crises when they come. And I think it's fair to say that this is a damning indictment on the Tory and the SNP's handling of the economy. However, Mr. Chair, I believe that Edinburgh, North and Leith and Scotland's best days lie ahead. We have the natural assets and the key ingredients to deliver economic growth. The green economy and the sprint to clean power. Scotland already generates significant amounts of clean power, and if Berwick Bank is consented by the Scottish Government, we could boast the largest offshore wind farm in the world within a few years. We need to secure manufacturing and supply chain jobs that will support the energy transition in Scotland, in such sites in the Port of Leith and my constituency. And to deliver brand Scotland, we need to rip through the border and stop selling Scotland to ourselves, but to the rest of the world. Salmon, shortbread, Tunnocks tea cakes, iron brews such as Len and Lime, whisky and Johnny Walker, which not only sell whisky to the world, but to over 1 million visitors who come and visit their experience in my constituency. We need to market these brands to every corner of the globe. Edinburgh is the largest tech hub. With the scale of innovation, we're creating more tech jobs ever, but we can't fill them. Mr. Chair, this leads me nicely to the key ask that needs to come out of this debate today, and that is that both of Scotland's governments need to work together. With the devolution settlement, it's not possible for the UK government alone to deliver economic growth for Scotland. That means celebrating the achievements together, but also tackling the blockers, the bureaucratic planning system, a skill shortage, women struggling to enter the workplace, to name but a few. Finally, Mr Chair, for workers across Scotland, a fair day's work must mean a fair day's pay. I'm delighted that the Labour Government brought forward a new deal for workers within their first 100 days, and I look forward to the biggest increase in workers' rights for a generation becoming a reality for workers across Edinburgh, North and Leith and Scotland in the coming years.
Christine Sullivan.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Mr Dowson. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And may I also congratulate my honourable friend for Glasgow East for securing this very important debate. And I welcome the opportunity to speak about Scotland's economy, not least because of the huge breadth of businesses situated in the towns and villages across my constituency, which is situated at the heart of the Central Belt with roads and rail links to Glasgow, Edinburgh and beyond. From small independent businesses to large multinationals spanning manufacturing, construction, hospitality, engineering, telecommunications, biosciences, retail, they all play a vital role in contributing to our local economy and supporting local jobs. Film and TV production makes an increasingly important contribution to the economy, with the filming of Outlander at Blackness Castle and in the Bathgate Hills, showcasing the beautiful and versatile backdrops the area has to offer. And more recently, Bathgate welcomed Colin Firth for the filming of Lockerbie. However, there are significant challenges that threaten to undermine our economic growth and prosperity, with the Scottish Government underfunding the vital investment needed in infrastructure projects and cutting initiatives for getting more people onto public transport, with a £23.7 million in-year cut to the travel budget. Whilst my constituency is home to many fast-growing towns and villages, we're not seeing the investment in infrastructure keep pace with development, and nowhere is that more starkly seen than with Winchborough, which continues to await its new train station, which would not only support a shift to sustainable travel and ease motorway congestion into Edinburgh, would also unlock further economic growth, supporting local businesses and improve links to employment opportunities. Another significant challenge facing communities is the swinging cuts to council budgets. West Lothian Council has had to find savings of £10 million per year for the last 16 years, whilst Falkirk Council has the second largest budget gap in mainland Scotland as a proportion of revenue spend. This is a story of two councils, one Labour-led, one SNP-led, both facing devastating cuts that will impact people and services across my constituency.
Elaine Stewart.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to thank the honourable member for Glasgow East for requesting this debate. He is right to call for this debate because for far too long governments in UK and Scotland have failed to work together, failed to create opportunity and failed to put Scotland's economy and people's well-being before party politics. Regions like Ayrshire powered the country's economy through their vast coalfield sites. And as we sit here today, former coalfield sites right across the country have been left behind. If you were to combine all the former coalfield sites in the UK, it would amount to the most deprived region in the country. Because of its unique history and landscape, Ayrshire has growth potential. We need to support the area to unlock opportunities there with more investment in skills infrastructure. With Scotland at the heart of the UK Labour government, our nation will lead the clean energy revolution. Ministers are already resetting relationships with the Scottish Government and working closely to ensure these benefits are felt by Scots and people right across the UK. Scotland is a powerhouse of the clean energy mission, and GB Energy will drive forward investments in homegrown energy production and provide benefits to bill payers. In Ayrshire, we are keen to capture the spillover effect from GB Energy being based in Scotland. GB Energy is about creating opportunity for clean economic growth, and I will be working hard to make sure these opportunities also reach my constituency. With the Government's objective of doubling onshore wind energy by 2023, Air Carrick-on-Cumnock hosts the largest wind farm currently in construction in the UK. This wind farm has embraced the model of setting up community benefit model, which will pump tens of millions into community projects over the lifetime of the wind farm. Growth in clean energy economy is one of the aspects of the change that we need to deliver in our constituencies. I shared with many of the points already made about what this government has already achieved in the first 100 days in office. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Susan Murray.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman, and thank you for chairing this debate, and to my honourable friend for bringing this important topic to the room. Thank all my honourable colleagues for their contributions, and I have to say that I agree that we are definitely stronger together, and building on the talent and experience in Aberdeen to develop new industries and being supported by the best universities in the world can only help us to secure investment for the future using Scottish talent and supporting areas of our economy like the hospitality industry. Scottish Government figures show that there were 338,000 small and medium-sized enterprises operating in Scotland. These SMEs created an estimated 1.2 million jobs, or 56% of private sector employment and 42% of private sector turnover as of March 2023. Despite their economic contributions, small businesses are in decline in Scotland. Both the SNP Scottish Government and the previous Conservative UK Government have implemented policies which have resulted in high energy costs and a challenging economic environment, preventing SMEs from thriving. The previous Conservative Government mishandled the economy, jeopardised public finances, halting economic growth and increasing the cost of our debt. Their bungled Brexit deal has harmed the economy, increasing costs for businesses, with 38% of SMEs reporting the UK's exit from the EU has been a major obstacle to their success. Further compounding these challenges, the SNP has cut over 23 million from net zero and energy spending, breaking its promises and reducing crucial investment in the renewable energy infrastructure. This decision directly impacts opportunities to lower energy costs for businesses, despite 72% of SMEs identifying energy expenses as a significant obstacle to their success. An example of this is from my own constituency in Mid-Dumbartonshire, where some small businesses are facing electricity standing charges of £16 a day. The Scottish Chambers of Commerce Economic Indicator report for the last quarter for Q3 2024 highlights anxieties about taxation around Labour's autumn budget, and pressures on cash flow and profit margins are already limiting growth and squeezing profits for businesses. Scotland hosts some of the largest wind farms in the world, in Europe, apologies. Not only faces high energy costs for consumers, but fails to produce even a single wind turbine blade domestically. This is tied to mismanagement of public contracts, including handing over 50 million to a firm that immediately collapsed, leaving no solution or recovery plan in place. Such setbacks not only undermine the renewable energy progress in Scotland, but also limit the potential benefits for local businesses and communities. Business and consumer confidence in Scotland is falling, but as a Liberal Democrat, I am optimistic for Scotland's future. The Liberal Democrats are committed to investing in innovation and skills to boost economic growth and create good jobs. We want to invest in community health services and fix the crisis in social care to get more people back into work. We want to ensure stability, certainty and confidence in public finance while reducing the national debt as a share of GDP and maintaining essential investments. Like those into our green transition. Finally, we are dedicated to repairing our fractured relationship with the EU restoring the benefits it once gave to the Scottish businesses as well as individuals. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Very good.
Well, thank you, Mr Dowd. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this morning. I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for Glasgow East for bringing forward this important debate on the state of Scotland's economy this morning. As the Honourable Member highlighted, there can be no doubt that Scotland's economy has suffered from 17 years of SNP rule. Now, it's going to be impossible to mention the many contributors to this morning's debate, but I want to mention just a couple. Firstly, the Honourable Member for Dunfermline and Dollar rightly highlighted the multiple failures, not just in relation to economic policy, but in other areas too of the SNP over the last 17 years. The Honourable Member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross talked about the importance of skills, particularly in rural areas like his own, and the same applies to my own area in the Scottish borders. And similarly, another challenge we have in the borders is access to childcare, which again prevents young women going back to work after. Yes, happily give way.
Honourable Member for giving way. Does he accept my point that these skills are ageing? We still have them, but if we don't pass them on, they could vanish. And it would be much harder to train a new generation of welders and fabricators.
Thank you. I totally agree. We need to invest in the skills that we have, otherwise they will be lost, particularly for more traditional industries, which, if the skills are lost, might never return. Kirsty, the member for Aberdeen North, who I don't often agree with, but she highlighted a very important point, I think, about the gap that is emerging between the skills in the oil and gas sector and those potentially being lost if the renewable sector does not accelerate more quickly. During my time as a minister, I know the sector up in the North East and Aberdeen highlighted that point repeatedly, that they were concerned that there was such a stigma attached to the oil and gas sector now. New people were not moving into that area, and they would not then be able to move over to the renewable sector when that opportunity arose. Yes, happily.
Thank you very much to the Honourable Member for giving way. Would you agree with me that the failure of both the SNP and the Conservative governments to plan for the site at Long Annet, which closed in 2016 when now it lies empty, is a missed opportunity and one that should be looking to work together with all governments in the future to bring thousands of jobs back to that area of West Fife?
Yeah, I think I'm going to push back slightly on the narrative that up until this point, both the Scottish Government and the UK Government, up until the election of the new government, had not been working together in regard to the project that you mentioned or in other areas. The reality is, I know this from my own experience, again, as a UK Government Minister, there was huge amounts of cooperation between the Scottish Government and the UK Government latterly. Yes, we did not agree on the question of independence, but it's a myth to say that just because there is a new Prime Minister, a new Labour government, all of a sudden there is a reset. I know the officials behind the scenes were working incredibly hard with officials in the Scottish Government to achieve the best for all of our communities, for all of us who represent Scottish constituencies, and the project that he highlights is an example of where both governments should be and have been working together to try and achieve positive outcomes. The last member I just want to mention is the Honourable Member for Edinburgh South West. I have to say I was very disappointed that he refused to oppose the new Labour Government's decision to scrap the supercomputer project for Edinburgh University. I know it was going to be a huge boost to the university. I know even in my own area, again in the borders, there was a number of people directly employed with that project, and they were mightily disappointed when the new government decided to rip up that deal. Mr Dowd, I'm going to make some progress, if I may. I've taken a number of interventions from members. Mr Dowd, our workers and our businesses have been poorly served by a nationalist government that has too often been distracted from the day job. And too often it's overlooked and sometimes even ignored what small businesses have been saying. Now let me just outline how stark the situation has become. A recent survey by the Fraser of Allender Institute at the University of Strathclyde highlighted two key points. Firstly, just 9% of Scottish firms agree that the Scottish Government understands the business environment in Scotland. And secondly, just 8% of businesses agreed that the Scottish Government engages effectively with their sector. Now, those statistics should have been a wake-up call for the SNP to reset their relationship with the business community. They've been promising that reset for years, but it simply hasn't happened. And the consequences are now becoming clear. Compared to 10 years ago, the Scottish economy has also grown more slowly than the United Kingdom's economy overall. GDP in Scotland is 8.4% larger in Q2 of 2024 compared to Q2 of 2014, whereas UK GDP is 14.3% higher. And while the Nationalists may try to claim an excuse by citing different population-based figures, the Fraser of Allender Institute have already dismantled that too. Their most recent economic commentary found that, and I quote, "Even when the differential population growth in the UK and Scotland is accounted for, growth in Scotland per person over the last 10 years has been 6% for the UK compared to just 4.3% for Scotland." Mr Dowd, it's crystal clear that ever since the independence referendum, Scotland has suffered from an SNP slowdown. The SNP's damaging business policies and harmful decision to bring the Greens into government, who don't even believe in economic growth, has cost our country dearly. Scotland's economy is crying out for something different, but it's not happening at the moment. Labour and the SNP only offer more of the same old ideas. John Swinney and Anna Sarwar favour most of the same policies. They both want higher taxes on workers. They both expect businesses to pick up the bill for a bigger state. They have the same socialist ideology that has failed Scotland for decades. The left-wing parties in the Scottish Parliament have become disconnected from the lives of normal people. They spend too much time on divisive policies and fringe obsessions like gender reform. And they don't spend enough time and energy and resources on driving Scotland's economy forward. Now, the Scottish Conservatives are proudly standing up against that left-wing consensus of the political establishment in Scotland. Scotland's workers, businesses and indeed our entire economy needs a different approach. It needs a new way forward. Yes, happily give way.
If you agree with me that the New Deal for working people would lift hundreds of thousands of families out of poverty, and that can only be good for Scotland?
I'm grateful for the intervention. I didn't quite catch the first of it, first point, but the previous government has a very proud record of improving the lives of people the length and breadth of Scotland by lifting people and families and children in particular out of poverty. And that's a record which the previous government is rightly proud of. And I wait to hear what the new government is going to do. We all wait to hear what the budget of the new government is going to contain. But I know from businesses and many communities and residents, there's a great fear of higher tax and more money going out of people's pockets, which will do nothing to deal with poverty in many communities the length and breadth of Scotland. Now, the Scottish Conservatives, are determined to deliver the stronger economic growth our country desperately needs. Under our new leader, Russell Finlay, the Scottish Conservatives will put forward a positive vision for the future of our country that champions the values of mainstream Scotland: opportunity, aspiration and decency. We will present positive new policies to fire up Scotland's economic growth, create opportunities for workers and businesses and reward aspiration with lower taxation. Thank you, Mr Dowd.
Thank you. John Lamont. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Dowd. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship and to speak on behalf of the government for the first time. Can I first begin by congratulating my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow East, on securing this debate on Scotland's economy, and to all honourable members for their contributions today. We've heard a lot about the positives and the potential of Scotland's economy during this debate today, such as the strength of Brand Scotland, which we've heard from a number of members, our thriving biosciences sector. We've even heard from the member for Bathgate and Linlithgow about our thriving film and TV sector, and I'm sure the crowd here this morning is just as great as that which turned out to welcome Colin Firth to Bathgate. But we've also heard, Mr Dowd, that it's about the problems in the Scottish economy at the moment. And it's no secret that the Scottish economy, along with the UK economy as a whole, is underperforming. This has been identified by many members who spoke today. My honourable friend, the member for Livingston, and the honourable member for Mid Dunbartonshire. 14 years of mismanagement by the previous Tory government has resulted in persistently low levels of investment, poor productivity growth and growing inequality. And that leads to this government facing the worst economic inheritance since the Second World War, a £22 billion black hole in the public finances, the Treasury reserves spent 3 times over in 3 months, which is just absolutely astonishing, financial commitments made by the previous government that they knew they couldn't keep. That inheritance means tough decisions for the government, but it's better to be honest and upfront with people about the choices that we face. And that's why my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, will set this out in her budget, and she will set out how we will fix the foundations of our economy so that we can tackle poverty, rebuild our public services and begin a decade of national renewal. But the economic inheritance we face isn't just fiscal, it's also structural. My right honourable friends, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, have made clear that the #1 priority of this government is growth. And to achieve that, the foundations of Scotland's industrial economy need to change significantly. That's why yesterday we published our industrial strategy green paper, and we heard from my honourable friend, the member for East Kilbride and Straven, about the importance of industrial strategy and how it's not just something dry, but something that really makes an impact on people's lives, of course.
The new role that he holds, and I wish him well and hope that things go according to his plans and all our plans. I'd mentioned in my contribution about the interconnector between Scotland and Northern Ireland as a potential to reduce energy and help us economically to grow together. I know the Minister's only in place. He may not be able to answer this question, but perhaps maybe he could come back to me at a future date if that's possible. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for his intervention and for the points he made during the debate about the importance of working together, not just between the UK and Scottish governments, but across these islands. And I'll ensure that officials write to the member on that point. Our industrial strategy calls time on short-term economic policy making and establishes a UK Industrial Council on a statutory footing to provide expert advice and long-term thinking. I'll take the...
Thank you, honourable friend. Can I confirm that actually this industrial strategy, indeed GB Energy and Clean Energy Revolution, is not merely theoretical but is practically working in the United States, the fastest growing economy in the G7, creating jobs in those former industrial areas. And indeed this Labour government will help to bring that about in Scotland, creating good jobs in those areas that need it most.
I welcome those comments from the honourable member. I also congratulate him on his election to the Treasury Select Committee yesterday. I'm sure he's going to make a great contribution on that committee, and I think he set out exactly what the plans that the government has set out will do for Scotland and the aspirations and ambition of those plans for our country. I'll just return to what I was saying in terms of the UK Industrial Strategy Council. The Council will work with specialist sectoral task forces that will bring the expertise of businesses, academics and trade unions together to help drive economic growth in all parts of our country. This will allow us to build on Scotland's strengths and huge potential in key sectors, including advanced manufacturing, life sciences, financial services, clean energy, defence and creative industries, all areas where Scotland is already beginning to thrive. And together with the establishment of GB Energy in Aberdeen, which the honourable member for Aberdeen North highlighted in her speech, and the creation of a national wealth fund, we will bring investment, jobs and growth to Scotland. Of course.
Thank you much, my honourable friend, for giving way. Would he agree with me that one of the key areas for investment from areas at the National Wealth Fund should be around the port infrastructure which Scotland has to ensure that we're making best economic uses of our coastline at places like Rosyth in my own constituency?
I would absolutely agree that our ports are essential to the future of our country, and coming from a constituency with an important and thriving port, I would definitely agree with the honourable member on that. We are taking tough decisions, but change is underway and investment is now flowing into this country. Just yesterday, as many honourable members have mentioned, the International Investment Summit brought the chief executives of hundreds of the world's biggest companies to the United Kingdom, where they announced £63 billion of investment and 38,000 jobs for the UK. This included Scottish Power and their parent company Iberdrola doubling their investment in the UK from £12 billion to £24 billion, and Greenvolt announcing a £2.5 billion investment in Scotland, which will benefit the whole country. This is just this, of course.
The Minister on his appointment. I'm I'm sure he'll do a very good job indeed. I may be a Liberal Democrat, but I recognise that one of the greatest achievements of the Labour government in the 1960s for the Highlands was the establishment of the Highlands and Islands Development Board, which did a great deal to reverse depopulation. Today, under the auspices of the Scottish Government, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, the successor body, is a shadow of its ancestor. I wonder if the Minister would agree to talk to the Scottish Secretary to see how, working with the Scottish Government, we can revitalise the HIDB.
I'll make that commitment to the member, and I understand myself the importance of the Highland and Islands Development Board. My partner's grandfather only arrived in Scotland because he was the chief engineer on the Cruachan Power Station. So that part of my family is here because of the work of the Highland and Islands Development Board and the skills. So I will make that commitment to the member to speak to the Secretary of State about those issues. Delivering significant change to Scotland's economy means working in partnership across areas of policy, not just industrial policy and employment rights, but also planning, housing, skills and access to health services. Many of these areas are devolved, and we are committed to resetting the relationship between the UK and Scottish governments. That doesn't mean we'll never disagree, but where we have shared goals, we should be able to work together. And that's what the Secretary of State for Scotland has already begun by working with the Energy Secretary, Gillian Martin, and Deputy First Minister, Kate Forbes, on a range of issues since coming to office. And one of those issues that was mentioned by both my honourable friend, the member for Glasgow East, and the member for Edinburgh South West was on universities. And I think I would agree with them that universities are a jewel in the crown of the Scottish economy. They drive innovation, they create jobs and new businesses, and they deliver world-leading research and education. And I know that the university sector will be crucial to the future of the Scottish economy. Of course.
A lot today about this great new relationship, and I wish you the best with that. But there are difficulties here. And the university sector is one of the areas that is very difficult. And we've seen in Scotland a cap effectively placed on the number of Scottish pupils able to leave school and go to university. And effectively, foreign students are incentivised. The university sector in Scotland has a fine past, but does it have a great future?
I would say it does have a great future, and I'm not dismissing the fact that there are obviously issues within the Scottish university sector, which many of my honourable friends laid out during the debate. But there's a huge potential for the future of the Scottish university sector, and I think it's for the not just for the Scottish Government, but also for the UK Government to make sure that that happens. And in terms of that relationship and that working together, I think what we saw from the previous government, unfortunately, was standoff, and I don't think that works to the benefit of any of our constituents or any of the people of Scotland, because what the majority of Scots want to see are there two governments working together to deliver better results. Yes, of course.
And I welcome the member here today. We're talking about universities. There's also been a significant challenge in Scotland around the decimation of further education, and particularly our colleges. And this is creating a real challenge for us for ensuring that those people who are looking to upskill, to reskill, to ensure that they are best placed to secure the jobs of the future, are able to do so. Does he agree with me that much more needs to be done by the Scottish Government to ensure that the further education in Scotland gets the support that it deserves?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, and I would agree with him. I know from experience even in my own constituency with James Watt College in Greenock, part of what is now the West College Scotland, we've seen issues with the investment in colleges, which largely impacts on the opportunities of largely working class young people and those who want a second chance, who maybe didn't get the results that they wanted to get at school and need that second chance. And the college sector always provided that for people, but I think at the moment is struggling to do so in many places across Scotland. Of course.
You talked about the university sector and how important it is to Scotland, and I think that's clear. I think there's two areas of that. One is, I think the industrial strategy is welcome, that we saw yesterday about how do we support our scale-ups and start-ups coming out of our Scottish universities. There already are great examples in my constituency of Livingston, but also across Scotland. But I think more work needs to be done to help those the great thinking that's going on in universities come into actual be more commercial. But secondly, the second thing I've been told by a lot of these people is there's not the same access to finance, and oftentimes they're either bought up or they have to look to move to America. And I think the work that the UK government is doing now to create the stable environment and also be part of the UK as part of the City of London and try and unlock the £3 trillion there are in pension funds to invest in these scale-ups are incredibly important. So not just that we start them here in Scotland, but then we can grow them too to a significant scale.
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention and thank him for welcoming the industrial strategy yesterday. I think it's important that we ensure that any opportunities from the university sector are spread right across the country, and that's obviously what the Chancellor is trying to do with the National Wealth Fund, is ensuring that opportunities are spread all across the country. And I think our university sector in Scotland is also trying to make sure that the opportunities from universities and from those startups are pushed out beyond just the borders of their own universities. And I think the point he made on access to finance is an important one, but I think what this government is trying to do is to ensure that we have the stable economic environment which we didn't have under the previous government, that gives investors confidence, as we saw yesterday when we doubled the amount since last year that was invested in the UK at the Global Conference last year. And I think that's a testament to the confidence that business now has in the UK because of the stable political environment we now have. I'll just make some... of course.
Does the member agree with me that the recently released Scottish Government industry statistics reveal very worrying trends in Scotland's food and drink sector? Output in food and drink sector falling, employment falling and businesses failing. These figures are absolutely scandalous. Both the SNP and the Tory government failed to adequately support the sector. Scotland's world-class food and drink industry. In my constituency of West and Bartonshire, the whisky industry is a significant employer. So will food and drink be a key growth industry identified in our government's blueprint for growth and therefore maximising brand Scotland and job opportunities in West and Bartonshire?
Thank my honourable friend for that intervention. The food and drink sector is going to play a crucial role in the future of the Scottish economy, not just the whisky sector that he has already mentioned, in which I know that he plays a key role in championing through the all-party group, but also in other sectors such as our great salmon sector, and there's a lot of other opportunities in food, drink and tourism where the Scottish economy can thrive in years to come. I would like to move on just to one particular area that the government has obviously been focusing on in recent months. One area of Scotland's economy where the governments have worked closely together in recent months has been responding to the commercial decision of Petro-Ineos to end oil refining at Grangemouth. The oil refining operation has played an important role in Grangemouth's economy for over 100 years. However, as a clear sign of how we can work together for the Scottish people, the UK and Scottish governments have announced a joint £100 million package to help secure Grangemouth's industrial future and to protect its skilled workforce. Scotland has a proud industrial past, as we've heard from many honourable members this morning, and as part of the transition to net zero of a bright industrial future, one that will guarantee jobs and wealth for families for generations to come. Of course.
Around that transition, I wonder if he would commit, while he's in the mood for making commitments, to speaking to the Chancellor about the Scottish carbon capture cluster and the fact that the carbon capture cluster are looking for a outward show of confidence from the government. I'm not asking for the Minister to push for money today, but just that positivity about progressing the Scottish cluster for carbon capture would be incredibly helpful for the industry.
Thank you for that intervention. I think we saw last week the government's commitment to carbon capture and storage, and I'm happy to take those points away and make sure that they're communicated to both the Secretary of State for Scotland and to the Chancellor. Mr Dowd, the government's focus on growth is in the service of our mission to tackle poverty, remove barriers to opportunity and put the country back in the service of working people. It's appalling that under the previous government, child poverty has gone up by 700,000 since 2010 in the UK, and today more than 1 in 5 Scots and 1 in every 4 children are trapped in poverty, trying to get by on less than they need. The Child Poverty Task Force, which this government has established, is developing a strategy to reduce child poverty, and it will be published in the spring of next year. The last UK Labour government oversaw huge falls in poverty levels across the UK. It's what Labour governments do, it's in our DNA, and we will do that again. The vital work of the task force comes alongside the government's commitment to make work pay. Last week we published the Employment Rights Bill, the biggest upgrade of workers' rights in a generation, and I welcome the comments from a number of honourable members, but including my honourable friend, the member for Coatbridge and Bells Hill, and Edinburgh North and Leith, in support of this agenda and how it will impact on their constituents. This government is calling time on unfair employment practices by ending exploitative zero-hours contracts, introducing day-one employment rights and establishing a new Fair Work agency to enforce workers' rights. This is all part of our plan to deliver economic growth for workers, businesses and local communities right across the UK. This Labour government, as we've heard from others this morning, is pro-worker and pro-business, so these reforms will not just help Scottish workers, but also boost Scottish businesses of all sizes. We are going to tackle head-on the low pay, poor working conditions and job insecurity that has been holding our country back. Our plan will grow our economy, tackle in-work poverty and raise living standards for all. We recognise that rebuilding our public services and economy will require investment, and the Chancellor has been clear there will be no return to austerity. And I would like to just emphasise that point again, that she has made numerous times now there will be no return to austerity. And whilst funding decisions and details will be presented at the upcoming budget, the UK Government is committed to retaining the Barnett formula and funding arrangements agreed with the Scottish Government in the fiscal framework. The framework provides the Scottish Government with greater certainty and flexibility to manage devolved public services as well as higher per-person spending. But this does not remove the need for both governments to take tough decisions to look after the public finances and to stabilise the Scottish economy. So, in conclusion, Mr Dowd, it is clear that Scotland's economy faces challenges, but as we've heard from, of course,
could I ask the Minister if he agrees with me that one of the challenges we've had in the Scottish economy in recent years is a gap between rhetoric and reality? For example, in the creative sector, which is based heavily in my constituency, the Scottish Government produced 10 strategies in 9 months. And what this means is the creative industries really just serve as a backdrop for Scottish Government Minister photo opportunities and don't engage with the deep challenges and opportunities that the sector faces. And does he agree with me that being honest with the public about the financial challenges that we face and then dealing with the foundational difficulties in order to grow from there is the correct response that the government is finally taking?
Hear, hear. I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I know that he has been, since he arrived here in July, a significant champion of the creative industries and the arts. And I think the example he gave there of 10 strategies in 9 months is the kind of short-term uncertainty that has reduced investment in our economy and not given people the certainty that they have required during the period of both the last Conservative government and the SNP government in Holyrood. So, Mr Dowd, it is clear that Scotland's economy faces challenges, but it is also brimming with potential. We are up to tackling those challenges and unleashing that potential. In our first 100 days, we have made significant progress in resetting the relationship with the Scottish Government. We have listened to the views of businesses and communities across the country, and we have set out a clear path to create the change that we were elected to deliver.
Grady, to wind up.
Thank you, Mr Dowd, and I thank every member for their wonderful contributions to this discussion. The honourable member for Strangford mentioned the interconnector between Scotland and England. I worked on the first interconnector between Scotland and England as a baby lawyer. It was a great passion of Mo Molam because the Labour Party has always backed great infrastructure projects that deliver growth for all of our family of nations. And that delivered a secure supply of energy to Northern Ireland and also a great outlet for Northern Irish renewables. The Labour Party this time round is absolutely committed to resolving the blockers on electricity transmission development so that we can get energy projects up and running quicker, clean energy, supplying British people and British businesses with lower cost energy. Inflation is the enemy of small businesses. And the member for Mid Dunbartonshire is quite right to focus on small businesses, which of course are a real motor for growth for a modern economy. And of course, we all recall the terrible 40 or 50 days of the Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng government, which wrought immense damage not just to small businesses in Scotland, but social landlords trying to plan their investments, facing unpredictable interest rates and, of course, unpredictable, out-of-control inflation. The honourable member for East Kilbride focused on the implications of poor economic policy and fiscal management for our wonderful towns and cities in Scotland, and she is right to do so because the mismanagement of the economy has terrible implications for people trying to educate their children, get treated with over 40% of Scottish operations for certain types of operations, such as hip operations, being carried out privately because the NHS doesn't have capacity. Economic growth is absolutely critical. The honourable member for Livingston mentioned the importance of governments working together when we do face industrial challenges, and I applaud the Secretary of State's work in trying to create a productive, closer working relationship with the Scottish Government. We will always put country above party. The honourable member for Edinburgh North and Leith, a wonderful part of the world, mentioned of course, employment rights, and we are absolutely focused on giving people fair employment. And the honourable member for Edinburgh North mentioned how wonderful Aberdeen is. Aberdeen North, I beg your pardon. And it is a wonderful city, as my mother used to tell me every day of the week. We do take, may I say, the energy transition very, very seriously. And that is one of the reasons why we are so disappointed that the SNP are spending the one-off ScotWind receipts not on energy transition, but on plugging a black hole due to their economic mismanagement. I thank the Chair for his wonderful chairing of this debate, and I close this debate on Scotland's economy.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone's contributions. The question is that this House has considered Scotland's economy. As many as of that opinion say aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order.